Remember those images in the media in the early days of the coronavirus pandemic that had the Earth wearing a face mask and several depictions indicating a healing Earth and an Earth on break? We all knew it was going to be a long run, a marathon, but no one knew, and up till now, no one knows how long this marathon will be. Coronavirus pandemic has revealed the commonality of human nature. We are one tribe when it comes to behavior. Around the world, people's morbid fear of the virus has, 6 months into the pandemic, been replaced by an acceptance that life must go on and an adjustment to living with the virus. Life must go on. The outbreak of COVID-19 has continued to have adverse effects on the global economy. This has necessitated strategies by countries to mitigate the impact of the pandemic with a view to ensuring that critical sectors are up and running. As part of its mandate, Port Economic Regulator Nigerian Shippers Council has risen to the challenge to come up with sustainable strategies which will ensure that the maritime transport sector stays afloat. This informed the 2-day mini sensitization workshop on trade facilitation organized by the Council. This is our focus on today's program. Come sail with us on the Shipper. I'm Rekia Zubairu. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back. Now, stakeholders in Nigeria's maritime and transport sector had the privilege of getting first-hand information on practical measures and steps being taken by the Nigerian Shippers Council aimed at safeguarding their businesses as the COVID-19 pandemic takes its toll on countries across the world. This was at a 2-day sensitization workshop on trade facilitation organized by Nigerian Shippers Council in Lagos. Lucy Ulugbe reports.
The reality of our time informed the COVID-19 protocol on physical distancing. Those who could not join the sensitization workshop in person linked up via webinar. Either way, nobody was left out. Stemming from the 10-point action plan released by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, the Nigerian Shippers Council says the situation in the sector has made it mandatory to address the challenges occasioned by the lockdown, which hampered movement and delivery of cargoes by shippers.
Project international trade of critical goods and speed up custom clearance and trade facilitation. Facilitate cross-border transport to ensure free flow of goods across borders and ensure the right of transit, that is to landlocked countries, authorities. Shippers Council equally constituted a COVID-19 maritime task force to review port operations during the COVID-19 period and come up with remedial measures to fill the identified gaps. It is interesting to know that this maritime action group consisted of MPA, NIMASA, NIWA, CRFN. CRFN was actually the chair of that task team. We also had Navy and Customs, Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria, and many other people. We always meet standard operating procedure between Nigerian Railway Corporation and the terminals. We are now having about 4 trips, so to say. And for every trip by rail, you knock out 38 trucks on the road. So I'm happy that this will be constant, and Shippers Council will ensure that this has happened. Evacuation or delivery of cargo, by barges, that is inland waterways. We are looking at the SOPs. We are looking at certain things to be regulated, the cost and so on. So we hope this will also be a veritable, source of transportation. The momentum and reviewed operational activities during the lockdown. This class of the Nigerian Shippers Council had a series of sensitization workshops for stakeholders, relevant government agencies, and all service operators and users to discuss trade facilitation challenges, lessons learned from this pandemic, and to reflect on ways of actualizing a national action plan to cushion the adverse effects of the pandemic on the Nigerian economy.
Director General, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Muda Yusuf, who presented a paper on COVID-19 and the urgent need for trade facilitation reforms in Nigeria, stressed the need for transparency and interagency collaboration to promote harmonization in inspections so that adequate information on all inputs and trade processes will be provided online to remove any form of uncertainty.
It's about participation. It's about inclusiveness. This is a gathering of stakeholders. Let us, in our own individual space, continue to speak out about things that we need to fix in this economy. If there is an issue that needs to be solved, if there is a problem that you want the government to address, we should not be tired of talking about it.
He also sheds more light on the need for transit measures and flexibilities regarding payments, interest and penalties, especially in a period of crisis.
This economy is a big economy. The potentials are enormous, but it is important that we get our trade processes right. Right now, quite a number of investors complain about the quality of our trade facilitation. It's very, very critical to economic diversification, to the advancement of the economy, to ensuring that this economy recovers very quickly from the setback that we have suffered following the onset of COVID-19. Because if there is anything we have learned during this COVID, is the need to adopt more digital solutions, the need to adopt more ICT solutions to the way we manage our affairs and to the way we also manage our processes.
Chairman Nasima Export Group, Kola Aware, highlighted measures to boost export trade during and after COVID-19 in Nigeria. According to him, there couldn't have been a better time to commence the much anticipated single-window platform for exports than now, saying the platform will make for seamless, paperless and harmonization of export process and documentation.
We are appealing to Nexim Bank and the federal government of Nigeria to put in the ceiling. The ceiling is supposed to be a regional vessel.
Dr. Aware later spoke to the shipper on measures Nigeria needs to adopt to improve export.
Nigeria needs to adopt all possible strategy in order to boost export. Nigeria needs to look at all the impediments to export in terms of infrastructure, in terms of policies, in terms of institutions and agencies. They need to look at all of them and look at the areas where they need to come in and intervene seriously, particularly as it relates to agro-exporters, because there's more income revenue generation and value addition that we have in raw export. For example, now, if you export one container of cashew nuts, what you get in the export of cashew kernels is 10 times of what you get in cashew nuts. So we need to push that because we're in dire need of money. Then the government also has to look at the constraints in the movement, logistics movement, the port operations, the road, the congestions, the laws. There's some laws that are not favorable to export, and those laws are bringing about informal export. For example, the federal government came out to say that we have more foreign exchange in people's domiciliary account than we have in the export proceed account. What does it mean? It means people are exporting informally rather than exporting formally. And why are they exporting informally? They're exporting informally because they prefer to get the export proceed and exchange it for 490 something rather than go to the bank and exchange it for. So government should look at that key window.
On his part, Dr. Obiara Madu of the African Center for Supply Chain made a presentation titled COVID-19 and Beyond, Maritime Industry and Emerging Trends in Global Trade.
The maritime industry had peculiar challenges like closure of port, low demand for cargo, of course, longer dwell time for vessels, increased clearing time, and all that. We don't know how long this journey is. So, but the fact is that we need to start from somewhere. That way, we can be reducing the impact until finally, one thing is sure, we'll get out of it one day. We don't know when, but it is possible that we can cope. The competitiveness is key for the nation. It is key for the economy. Then the ports. The ports is one place, because if you look at the 6 pillars of the Logistics Performance Index of the World Bank, access into the port and out, quality of logistics infrastructure, quality of logistics services, timeliness of transactions, and ease of going in and out. All these things are the places that you find avoidable costs. Avoidable costs, and they all happen in the port. I think advocacy, let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. The moment we stop talking, things will stop happening. We may not see the impact immediately, but somewhere along the line, we'll get it right.
Dr. Madu dwelt on steps needed to be taken to ensure that Nigeria's transport industry copes with emerging trends in the global trading system post-COVID-19.
There is no way any agency or government can on their own do all these things. If we go to the terminal operator's website, can we see the charges? Because that's what happens elsewhere in the world.
We are trying to recognize the need to, deploy information technology, in terms of e-commerce, in terms of, operating a paperless port, a digital port, a virtual port, So, in terms of equally trade facilitation, we equally need to embrace new things, new technologies. This our workshop is in line with the UNCTAD declaration, the 10-point agenda. UNCTAD during the pandemic advised that ships should continue to move. Because if you don't supply nutrition and medicines, there is no way you can fight the COVID pandemic. It is equally some of our observation, the observation of the management of Nigerian Shippers Council, because during the lockdown, we moved around, from terminals to terminals, from shipping company to shipping company. And we observed that there is a lot of people, human beings, the port users, the terminals, besieging the shipping companies. And we advise that there are some online services available to shipping companies, So there are some online services provided by terminals. So we advise the freight forwarders, we advise the shippers to make use of these online services in terms of if you want to obtain the rotation number of a vessel. It can be applied online, like invoices could equally be issued online. So the purpose of the workshop today is to enable stakeholders to review the operation of the port during the lockdown, and come out, with new measures that could facilitate trade in Nigeria in line with global best practices. The issue of equally setting up an export strategic committee was equally mentioned. It's going to be a clearinghouse for export, so that if there is any problem, that committee is expected to be made up of the Nigeria Customs, Export Promotion Council, Central Bank of Nigeria, MPA, Shippers Council, and other critical stakeholders. So the purpose is that if there is any challenge faced by export, it will be escalated to that committee, and they will on the spot, resolve it, so that export will flow freely into our ports. Our port must go paperless. The issue of single window system, it must be addressed frontally. Shipping companies should digitalize their processes and procedure. Terminal operators should equally digitalize their processes and procedure. Government agencies at all levels should equally digitalize their processes and procedure, so that we can conduct, some of these services, online. Freight forwarders should equally embrace the power of information technology. Their members should try to align themselves and ensure that they patronize the online services now available, or being provided by terminals, by shipping companies, and other government agencies, and equally by banks. People should try as much as possible and make online payments. I see no reason why people should not go to bank again for the purpose of making payment physically. So that is the only way we can all these measures put in place should help in combating our fight against the coronavirus pandemic.
There were reactions and contributions from stakeholders present and participants via webinar.
It's a beautiful seminar that touched about our industry, especially with the COVID pandemic. What I learned here is that the pandemic wasn't expected, and when it came, it clamped down on every affair. So we have been able to see the loopholes, and then now there is an attempt to begin to address and arrest those gaps. We need to remove the old roadblocks. The aged ones, the corrupt ones that are blocking the way of the youths. Because I said the youths are now driving the IT, and if we use the IT, we'll be able to equate and balance some of the losses we are having.
There should be kind of a conscious mind shift, change the way we do business, to change the way we think on the part of every stakeholder, be it the customs, who are very key in trade facilitation measures. The more trade we facilitate, the more legitimate trade we facilitate, the more trade will happen.
To facilitate trade require ensuring that we have necessary infrastructure in place. That's why the development is slow in this part of the world.
The mini sensitization workshop with the theme Trade Facilitation During COVID-19 Pandemic, Challenges, Lessons and the Way Forward is one of the numerous initiatives by the Nigerian Shippers Council to assure stakeholders of government's continued support in transport sector.
Stay with Shippers Council, Nigeria's port economic regulator, as it executes its mandate, doing its part to keep the economy afloat. It's now time to move on to the Tidbits segment to serve up a menu of events in the world of shipping and other matters.
Tidbits on your favorite maritime program, The Shipper. I am Abike Idowu. The Nigerian Shippers Council's unit of FRSC Special Road Marshal has been inducted by the Federal Road Safety Corps. The induction ceremony was held at the Nigerian Shippers Council's headquarters in Lagos. Among the inductees were the Director of Finance and Accounts, Mr. Daniel Bonat, the Director of Consumer Affairs Department, Chief Kajitan Agu, Director of Special Duties, Mrs. Adaku Victoria Okam, the Deputy Director of Monitoring and Intermodal Coordination, Mr. Moses Fadipe, amongst others. Also in Kano, Nigerian Shippers Council's Director Northwest, Hajia Othman Karimatu, inspected Dala Inland Dry Port, which is fast approaching completion. And here is our complaint register for the first half of the year 2020. A total number of 271 complaints were received. 67 have been resolved, 15 are kept in view, while 189 are still ongoing investigations, with 5 escalations to Interpol and the enforcement unit of the Council. Different types of complaints were received. Prominent among the complaints are export fraud, Nigerian Customs Service cargo seizures, impersonation of consignee, and missing cargoes. Nigerian Shippers Council has achieved a lot by using the alternative dispute resolution mechanism to arbitrate trade disputes and handle complaints and claims to do with shipping services across all transport modes. The shipper received a letter of appreciation from one of our stakeholders, Mr. Ikechukwu, who had his container seized because of a delay in returning 1 unit of empty container. He wrote the council stating unfair conduct of the shipping line, and within a week after investigations were carried out, the matter was resolved. And now some tidbits on shipping around the world. The oil Oil Companies International Marine Forum is providing a remote inspection option within its Ship Inspection Report program as a temporary measure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result of the coronavirus, physical inspection has become limited, and to prevent exposure of the inspector and the vessel crew to the risk of the virus, remote inspection was introduced. While in Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Ports Authority says it has received instruction from the General Authority of Meteorology and Environmental Protection to disallow ships discharge wash waters from their exhaust gas cleaning system. And that's it on this week's Tidbits. Till next time.
This is where we drop the anchor today on The Shipper. Do join us again next week for another smooth ride. Thanks for watching.